The church bells rang slow and heavy, echoing across the quiet town. Guests filled the decorated hall with smiles, whispers, and the rustle of clothes too fine for everyday life. White roses lined the aisle, their petals soft like snow, but the air was thick with something else, something invisible. Almost like a storm waiting to break. At the front of the hall stood a woman in a long lace dress. Her beauty drew every eye, not only because of the veil that framed her face, but because she carried herself with a kind of grace that came from strength. Her name was Leora, a woman who had endured storms most could not imagine. Today was meant to be her new beginning. She was about to marry a man everyone thought was charming, respected and perfect. The groom, Adrian, stood tall in his black suit. His jaw was sharp, his eyes cold behind a practiced smile. To the guests, he looked like a man proud of his bride. But for those who dared to stare too long, there was something hidden in his face. A shadow. A weight. In the third row, a young boy sat stiffly, his small hands gripping the bench so hard his knuckles turned pale. He was no ordinary child. His eyes, wide and wet, saw what others refused to see. This boy was Malek, Leora's son. Barely 10 years old, yet wiser than most grown men. For weeks, he had tried to warn his mother. For days, he had begged her to listen. And now, at the very moment she was about to speak her vows, his heart raced with panic. The pastor opened the book and spoke the ancient words of unity. The audience leaned forward, smiling at the beauty of tradition. Leora's lips parted slightly as she prepared to repeat the vows. But Malek could not stay silent. His small voice broke through the air, sharp and trembling. "Mom, stop!" The hall froze. Every guest turned, eyes darting to the boy who now stood in the aisle, his face pale, his hands shaking. Leora blinked in shock, her words stuck in her throat. Adrian's smile faltered for the first time, his eyes narrowing with a sharpness that sent a chill through Malek's bones. "Malek, sit down," Adrian said softly, though his tone carried steel underneath. But the boy's tears spilled, streaking down his face as he shouted louder. "You can't marry him, Mom. He's lying. He's not who he says he is." Gasps rippled through the hall. Guests shifted uncomfortably. A murmur spread like fire. Leora's chest tightened as she stared at her son. This was no tantrum. His voice carried a truth so raw it cut deeper than any blade. Adrian stepped forward, reaching for the boy, but Malek backed away quickly. "Don't touch me," he cried. "You hurt people." "I saw it. You think no one knows, but I know." The silence shattered. Some guests whispered in disbelief. Others frowned at the child, wondering if this was nothing more than fear of losing his mother. But Leora saw something else. In her son's trembling body, in his desperate eyes, she saw a truth she had been ignoring for too long. "Malek." Her voice cracked, gentle but full of worry. The boy's small fists clenched. His words were broken by sobs, but he forced them out anyway. "He's dangerous, Mom. Please don't say yes, please." Adrian's face hardened. He looked less like a groom and more like a man exposed. His hand twitched as though his mask was slipping. And in that moment, Leora realized the boy she had raised, the boy she loved, would not speak unless it mattered. The pastor cleared his throat nervously, unsure whether to continue. Guests exchanged glances, torn between respect for the child's outburst and the unease it planted in their hearts. Leora looked at Adrian, then at Malek, and back again. The two most important figures in her world, standing on opposite ends of a war she did not expect to fight. Her voice was low, but it carried across the hall. "Malek, what did you see?" The boy wiped his tears roughly, his chest rising and falling with shaky breaths. He took a step forward, his words slow but heavy with meaning. "I saw him last night. I followed him. He wasn't where he said he was. He was on the phone, talking about you, about me, about something bad. Adrian's jaw tightened, his fists hidden behind his back. His charm, his carefully built mask, cracked just enough for all to see. The guests stirred. Some shifted away from him. The weight of suspicion settled in the air. And in that moment, the wedding no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like a battlefield. Leora's hands trembled as she clutched her bouquet. Her heart pounded. The world seemed to tilt. Somewhere inside her, a voice screamed to run. Another voice demanded proof. And yet, one truth was clear. Her son had never looked more certain. The hall filled with silence so deep it pressed against every chest. Leora stared at Adrian, searching his face for answers. But all she found was a shadow that now seemed darker than ever. Her lips parted, but she did not say, "I do." Instead, she whispered words that made Adrian's eyes narrow with fury and fear. "Explain yourself." The hall was no longer a place of joy. The roses seemed less bright, the soft music had turned into silence, and the guests leaned forward as if they were watching a play that suddenly turned real. All eyes were on Adrian, the groom who stood with his mask cracking inch by inch. He forced a smile, but his jaw was tight. "Leora," he said softly, "he's just a child. You know children. Their imagination runs wild. He doesn't want to share his mother. That's all this is." But Malik shook his head with sharp defiance. "I'm not making it up. You weren't talking about love or marriage. You were talking about finishing something. You said it would all be over once she was yours." His voice trembled, but his courage shone. Leora felt her stomach twist. She wanted to believe this was all a mistake, that her son had misunderstood. But the way Adrian's eyes narrowed, the way his lips pressed together as if holding back words too sharp for this audience, told her Malik was not wrong. "Malik," Adrian said again, his tone colder now. "Sit down. We'll talk later." The boy shook his head. His tears had dried, leaving only the fire of truth in his eyes. "No, if I sit down, you'll win. And if you win, she'll lose." A ripple of shock went through the guests. Some shifted uncomfortably, others whispered, their curiosity now laced with fear. Leora stepped closer to her son, her hand brushing against his small shoulder. She felt him trembling, yet standing stronger than anyone else in the room. Her gaze turned to Adrian. "What is he talking about?" she asked. For a moment, Adrian did not answer. His silence was heavier than words. Then, with a slow exhale, he forced another smile, but it was hollow, stretched thin across his face. "Leora, you've been through so much. I came into your life to give you safety, love, and a future. Don't let a frightened boy ruin that." But the more he spoke, the more it sounded like rehearsed lines. The words were smooth, but the crack showed in his voice. Leora had lived long enough to know when someone's truth did not match their eyes. And Adrian's eyes. They were hard now, almost calculating. Malik clutched her hand tightly. "Mom, please. He's not safe. He's not who he says he is. Last night, he said something about a code. He said he had to report after today. He's hiding something. He's not here for us." The word code struck deep. Adrian flinched, his mask shattering for just a second before he steadied himself again. Leora caught it, and so did the guests. The air grew heavier. The pastor cleared his throat nervously, whispering, "Perhaps we should pause the ceremony." But Adrian snapped his head toward him, the charm gone from his face. "No, there is no need." His voice had an edge, almost like an order rather than a request. The boy pressed on, braver than ever. "You're not here to marry her. You're here because someone sent you. You're here to hurt her." The words rang through the hall like thunder. Gasps erupted. Several guests rose from their seats, eyes wide in fear. Leora's heart pounded so loud she could barely hear anything else. Adrian's expression darkened, no longer hiding behind a smile. "Enough," he growled. This has gone too far. He took a step forward, and Malak instinctively stepped back, pulling his mother with him. The fear in her son's eyes was no longer just fear, it was warning. And in that instant, Leora finally saw what she had refused to see before. Adrian was not the man she thought she knew. He was something else entirely. Her grip tightened on Malak's hand. She turned her face toward the guests, her voice trembling, yet strong enough to be heard. "Someone call 911. The hall erupted into chaos. Guests scrambled for their phones. Some shouted, others stood frozen. And Adrian, his mask fully gone, glared at Leora with an expression that sent a chill down every spine in the room. For the first time, the wedding veil felt less like a symbol of love and more like a shroud of war. The wedding hall had turned into a storm. Guests clutched their phones, some dialing, others frozen in shock. The quiet beauty of the ceremony was gone, replaced by shouts and gasps. But in the middle of it all, Leora stood with her son's hand gripped tightly in hers, her heart beating like a drum of war. Adrian's calm mask was gone. His sharp jaw tightened, and his eyes burned with something cold and dangerous. He lifted his hand as if to silence everyone, but his voice carried more weight than any gesture. "You don't know what you're doing," he said, low but clear. "Calling 911 will not protect you. They cannot stop what is already in motion." The room froze again. Those words were not from a man defending himself. They sounded like a warning or a threat. Leora's breath caught. Malak pressed closer to her, his small frame trembling, yet his gaze never left Adrian. "What are you talking about?" Leora demanded, her voice sharp with fear and anger. "What is in motion?" Adrian exhaled slowly, as if making a decision. Then he looked at her not as a groom, not even as a man, but as something else entirely. His eyes seemed almost unnatural for a second, glinting with a strange light, like metal reflecting sun. "I was never sent here for love," he said. "I was sent here for you." Gasps echoed across the hall. A woman fainted in the back row. The pastor dropped his book. Leora felt the ground shift beneath her. "Sent? By who?" she whispered. Adrian's lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. "By those who know what you are. You thought you were safe, hiding among humans, pretending to be one of them. But you can't hide forever, Leora." Every sound in the hall seemed to vanish. Even the air felt heavy. Leora's skin prickled, her heart racing with a terror she had buried long ago. She had worked so hard to keep the truth hidden, even from her own son. But now the secret was dragged into the light. Malak looked up at her, his eyes wide with confusion. "Mom, what does he mean?" Tears burned at her eyes, but she could not answer. "Not here. Not now." Adrian stepped closer, his voice gaining power. "You are not what they think. You are not the helpless widow everyone pities. You are the last of your kind, and your blood carries power. That is why I was chosen. To claim it. To control it." The hall erupted with panicked whispers. Guests staggered to their feet, torn between fleeing and watching. Some thought Adrian was mad, but the way Leora's face drained of color told them there was truth in his words. "Enough!" Leora cried, her voice breaking through the chaos. "This ends now," but Adrian only shook his head. "No, Leora, this is only the beginning. You can't fight it. You can't fight me." He reached into his coat. The crowd screamed, fearing a weapon. Malak clung tighter to his mother, his heart pounding against her side. But instead of a gun, Adrian pulled out a small device, glowing faintly blue, humming with energy that seemed unnatural. "This is my proof," he said, holding it high. "This is my key. With you by my side, everything changes. With you bound to me, your strength will no longer be wasted. Together, we rise." The device pulsed, sending a strange vibration through the room. Glasses rattled on tables, the lights flickered. Some guests covered their ears as if the sound clawed at their minds. Malik screamed, "Mom, don't let him!" Leora stood frozen, her heart torn between fear and fury. She had wanted a normal life. She had wanted her son to grow in peace. But now the truth could no longer stay buried. Adrian had forced her hand, her eyes sharpened. She pulled Malik behind her and lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the trembling inside. "You may have been sent for me," she said coldly, "but you will never have me." Adrian's smile widened. "We'll see." The device in his hand flared brighter, and the room shook as if something greater than human hands had been unleashed. The glow from Adrian's device spread across the wedding hall like ripples of lightning trapped in glass. Guests screamed, stumbling over benches and chairs as the floor vibrated under their feet. The roses that had once filled the air with gentle fragrance now scattered across the aisle, trampled in panic. Malik clung to his mother's dress, his small voice cutting through the noise. "Mom, what's happening?" Leora's lips trembled, her heart fighting against the truth she had long kept hidden. She had hoped this day would be about love, about peace, about giving her son the family he deserved. But now, with Adrian's words and the device humming like a living heart, she knew there was no choice left. Her hand cupped Malik's cheek, her voice firm yet soft. "Listen to me, Malik. You must be brave. You must believe me when I say I will never let anyone take you from me." Adrian's laugh echoed darkly. "Brave words, Leora, but bravery will not save him. Only truth can. And you've hidden yours for too long." The boy looked between them, confusion and fear battling in his eyes. "Truth? What truth?" Leora's chest tightened. She had never wanted him to know. Not yet. But the war she had fled had followed her even here. With slow resolve, she stepped forward, placing herself between Adrian and her son. The faint shimmer in her skin glowed, almost invisible at first, but growing with each beat of her heart. Gasps filled the hall again. To the guests, it looked as though Leora's skin caught fire with light, faint patterns etching themselves across her arms like hidden constellations. "No," Malik whispered, staring wide-eyed. "Mom, you're glowing." Adrian raised the device higher, its hum now syncing with the glow on her skin. "Yes, show him what you are. Show them all. You can't hide it now." The pastor stumbled back, dropping his book entirely. Some guests bolted for the doors, while others pressed themselves against the walls, eyes wide with terror and wonder. Leora's breath shook, but her voice came steady. "I am not from this place, Malik. I came here when I was young. I thought I could build a life, hide among humans, raise you safe from all of this. But I am not like them. And Adrian, he belongs to those who want to use me." The boy's tears welled again, not from fear of her, but from the weight of the truth. "You're not human." Her eyes softened, shining with sorrow. "I am your mother. That is what matters most. But yes, I come from far beyond this world. And there are those who will never stop hunting me." Adrian stepped forward, the device now glowing brighter, forcing the chandeliers to flicker as if struggling against its pulse. "You could have ruled, Leora. You could have been more than a shadow hiding in this small life. But you chose weakness. That's why I was sent. To remind you of who you are, and to make you mine." Malik shouted, his small fists clenched. "She doesn't belong to you." The courage in his voice silenced the chaos for a moment. Even Leora turned, staring at him with pride and fear mixing inside her. He was just a boy, but he stood as if he carried the strength of generations. Adrian's smile twisted. "Bold words, child. But you have no idea what she carries in her blood. And if you are truly hers, then so do you." The crowd gasped again, the words hanging heavy in the air. Malik froze, his heart pounding as his mind raced. "Him?" Leora's voice rose like thunder. "No, he will not be part of your war." The glow on her skin intensified, pulsing in defiance. Adrian tightened his grip on the device, its energy flaring like a star contained. The hall shook violently, cracks spreading along the marble floor. "Then you leave me no choice," Adrian growled. "If you won't come willingly, I'll take you by force." The guests screamed as the device unleashed a wave of energy, throwing chairs and scattering petals like a storm of fire. Leora shielded her son with her body, her light flaring brighter, her secret no longer hidden but burning in the open. The war she had tried to escape had finally found her. The blast from Adrian's device rippled through the wedding hall, scattering glass and petals across the floor. The guests who hadn't fled screamed as the air shimmered with strange energy, making the chandeliers swing wildly above. Leora knelt over Malek, shielding him with her own glowing body. "Stay down," she commanded, her voice sharp but steady. Malek's small hands clutched her arm. His wide eyes searched her face, full of both fear and awe. "Mom, you're shining like the stars." She forced a smile through the chaos. "That's because I am fighting for you." Adrian's figure loomed through the smoke, the blue glow of his device painting his face in a sinister light. His suit was torn, his calm charm long gone, replaced by something ruthless and inhuman. He raised the device again, its pulse syncing with Leora's glow as though it were designed to bind her. "You can't run from destiny, Leora." His voice roared across the hall. "Your blood is not yours alone, it belongs to the ones who sent me. And the boy," he pointed at Malek, "he carries it too. That's why he feels it. That's why he knows." Leora's stomach twisted. She had hoped Malek's blood would remain dormant, untouched by the legacy she had fled. But she saw it now, the faint shimmer across his hands, the way his eyes reflected the light, as if his soul was answering a hidden call. Malek looked at his hands, horrified. "Mom, what's happening to me?" Her heart cracked, but her voice remained firm. "You are strong because you are mine. But you will not be theirs. Do you understand? Never theirs." The boy nodded shakily, clenching his fists. Even in fear, his courage echoed hers. Adrian sneered. "You think you can deny what you are? He's already awakening. His power will outgrow you, and when it does, I will be there to claim him." Leora rose to her feet, standing between Adrian and her son. Her glow spread wider, illuminating the hall in waves of light that pushed back the device's energy. "You will never touch him." "Not while I live," Adrian laughed darkly. "Then you won't live long." With a violent gesture, the device sent out another wave. Wooden benches splintered, guests collapsed to the ground, and the pastor shielded his face with trembling hands. But this time, Leora raised her arms, her light meeting the wave head-on. The clash filled the hall with a thunderous crack, sparks flying like a storm of stars. Malek stumbled back, shielding his eyes, but through the glare he saw something incredible. His mother was pushing back the wave, her entire body blazing with alien light, her dress torn and fluttering as though she were made of fire itself. Adrian gritted his teeth, forcing the device harder, but sweat dripped down his face. "You can't win." But even as he roared, something else happened. Malek's hands, trembling and glowing faintly, began to rise on their own. His breath came fast, his chest tight, but his heart screamed with only one thought: protect her. And then, without fully understanding, he shouted. His small voice cracked through the noise like lightning. "Leave my mom alone." The glow around his hands burst outward, a shockwave of light slamming into Adrian. The groom staggered back, his device sparking wildly, its hum breaking into stutters. Guests gasped, some screaming prayers, others staring in stunned silence. Adrian's eyes widened, fury twisting into disbelief. "Impossible. The boy is awakening already?" Leora turned in shock, her breath catching as she saw her son, standing tall despite trembling legs, light streaming from his hands. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear, but of pride and dread tangled together. "Malik," she whispered. "You did it." The boy looked up at her, panting, confused. "I don't know how, it just happened." She pulled him close, whispering into his hair. "Because you are mine. And because you are stronger than you know." Adrian's device flickered, its glow unstable. He snarled, clutching it tightly. "This isn't over. You think one child can stop me? The bloodline belongs to us, and I will return with all the force of those who command me." The hall, broken and torn, stood silent except for the hum of dying lights. Leora met Adrian's gaze with fire in her eyes. "Let them come," she said coldly. "But you will not leave here with him." Adrian's smile returned, though twisted and dark. "We'll see," and with that, the device flared one final time, releasing a blinding flash that swallowed the hall. The blinding flash from Adrian's device swallowed everything. For a moment, the hall seemed to vanish into white silence, as though the world itself had been erased. When the light finally faded, the guests were on the floor, shielding their faces, coughing in the haze. Leora blinked through the smoke, her heart hammering. She reached for Malik, and relief flooded her when she felt his small hand grip hers tightly. He was still there, trembling but alive. Across the ruined aisle, Adrian stood hunched, his suit torn, his face slick with sweat. The device in his hand sparked and hissed, its glow unstable, its hum breaking into uneven gasps. He looked less like a groom now, and more like a soldier stripped of his disguise. "You can't stop it," he rasped, his voice cracking with desperation. "Even broken, this device will mark you. They'll find you. They'll find him." His eyes cut toward Malik. Burning with hunger, Leora pulled her son behind her, her glow pulsing like a shield. "Maybe they'll come," she said, her voice steady despite the quiver in her chest. "But when they do, they will learn one thing: humans protect their own." Malik tightened his grip, his small voice cutting through the ruin. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Adrian staggered forward, raising the flickering device. "The boy doesn't belong here. He belongs to us." Something inside Malik ignited at those words. His fear melted into a heat he couldn't explain, a force that surged from his chest into his hands. He stepped out from behind his mother, his glowing eyes locked on Adrian. "I belong to her," he said firmly. "And no one else." The device screeched as Adrian thrust it forward, but before its energy could release, Malik raised his hands. Light poured from his palms, raw and unrefined, but stronger than before. It struck the device with a crack that shook the hall, and the weapon exploded in Adrian's grip. Shards of metal flying, Adrian screamed, clutching his burned hand. The guests gasped in horror, some scrambling toward the exits. But Leora did not move. She stood tall, her light flaring as she held her son's shoulders. "It's over," she said. Her voice carried the finality of thunder, but Adrian's eyes burned with madness. "It will never be over," he hissed. "Even if I fall, others will come. You can't hide him now. The galaxy will claim what's theirs." He lunged forward in desperation, but this time, he didn't reach Leora. Malik stepped into his path, his small hands blazing with the glow of his heritage. He shouted with every ounce of courage he had left, "Stay away from my mom." The blast of light knocked Adrian off his feet, slamming him into the broken wall. His body crumpled, the last sparks of the device flickering out beside him. For a long moment, silence reigned, broken only by the heavy breaths of those who had witnessed what no human wedding was ever meant to hold. Leora dropped to her knees, pulling Malik into her arms. Tears streamed down her face, not of sorrow but of pride. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved us both." The boy buried his face in her shoulder, sobbing. "I was so scared." She kissed his hair, rocking him gently amid the wreckage. "So was I, but you were brave. Braver than anyone here." The pastor, pale and trembling, finally found his voice. What are you? He whispered. Lior arose slowly, holding Malak close. Her glow dimmed until only faint patterns lingered on her skin. She met the eyes of the guests who dared to look at her. I am a mother, she said softly. That is all you need to know. The wail of sirens grew louder outside. The call to 911 answered. Red and blue lights flashed against the shattered windows as officers poured into the hall. They froze at the sight of the wreckage, their hands hovering near their weapons, uncertain of what had happened. Leora stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. Take him, she said, pointing to Adrian's broken form. He came here with lies and nearly destroyed us. But his war is not mine. The officers moved cautiously, cuffing Adrian as he groaned. Too weak to resist. As they dragged him away, Malak clung tighter to his mother. Will they come back for us? He whispered. Liora looked down at him, brushing his cheek gently. Her eyes held both sorrow and fierce determination. Maybe, but when they do, we'll be ready. Because you are not just my son, you are proof that even in the darkest places, love can fight back. The boy nodded slowly, his fear giving way to quiet strength. And as the ruined hall emptied, as whispers spread and sirens faded, one truth remained unshaken. The wedding had not been the beginning of a marriage. It had been the beginning of a war, but Leora and Malak would face it together.